A long-term dream of mine has always been to own my own woodland. After many years searching, I finally bought a woodland that I could call my own. This woods has a mixture of mature beech and oak trees, some ash and some coppiced hazel. There is also the odd silver birch. The woodland itself has not been tended to for many years, and so it is now that I begin my journey into woodland management, trying to create an equal balance of biodiversity and making use of the timber resources that are available. I want to reignite some of the lost traditional woodland crafts that Britain was so famous for, and to pass on the knowledge that I learned to my children, and hopefully their children, for generations to come. This journey is a long one, and I'm sure that many of my ideas and plans will adapt and change over time. For now, I'm spending as much time as I can to get to know this woodland, surveying the flora and fauna available to me, and researching on the various aspects of woodland management and traditional crafts of Britain. Throughout this process, I will be using a mixture of traditional tools, as well as more modern techniques, to aid me on this journey of managing my own woodland. This is an ongoing project, and one that I hope you will join me on. So if you want to be part of this with me, then feel free to click the subscribe button so you can be notified when the next episode goes up. In recent weeks, the UK has been hit by some strong winds and a number of storms. This has resulted in this particular unmanaged area of hazel being quite badly hit. There are a number of hazel trees that have already blown down, and so I wanted to use a few of these resources to build something that would help benefit me when gathering and preparing firewood. This large ash tree has been on my mind for a few weeks now, and whilst I am still unsure of what to do with the main trunk, most of the top branches are high and dry and would make some great firewood and possibly some nice carving material. Whilst I love using hand tools, especially in the woods, it soon became apparent that if I wanted to make any decent progress on processing this ash tree, it was going to need more powerful tools. So I bought myself a 36-volt cordless chainsaw with 2 rechargeable batteries. It makes quick progress of bucking up the ash logs into usable sizes, and it doesn't have the noise that comes with a petrol version. One of the other tasks that has been on my mind recently was some of the ivy that is growing on a few oak trees on my boundary. Ordinarily, I would leave the ivy to grow, as it creates a great habitat for birds, as well as a source of nectar for bees during late autumn. However, some of these oaks are over 300 years old, and have historically been part of the boundary of this woodland. I would like to preserve that history as much as possible. Dense ivy cover can deprive the tree's bark of normal contact with air and microorganisms, and can at times block sunlight from reaching the leaves. So I am relief cutting some of the ivy of these trees, making sure to cut a gap of about 15 to 18 inches. This will prevent the ivy from growing back. The ivy stems on the tree will eventually die back, and the leaves will fall, all of which will provide some more nutrients to the decomposers and the forest floor.
This is kind of a prime example of essentially what the ivy does over the years. It wraps itself around the branch, around the tree from the stump, and eventually it does kind of suffocate the tree. But more often than not, before it even kills the tree, it actually tends to blow down. They blow down in the wind where there's much more resistance with those evergreen leaves from the ivy in the winter storms, in the winter wind here in the UK. So that's just an example of what it does. Yeah, just for these oak trees, like I say, on the boundary of my property, where they're facing the wind, they are basically the front line for the wind in the winter months. It's going to come straight into these boundary trees first, and they're protecting the trees that are on the inside. I feel I'd like those to stay. I know that the ivy can be a really good source of nectar for bees later on in the year. Then obviously when the wild plants and things die down, the ivy is one of the last resorts for bees to continue to survive. But the way I see it is, I can do other things on my land to help bees, beehives, things like that, which I'm going to look into. There are things I can implement to encourage and help bees along their lifespan, along their route. I can help them. I can plant wildflowers. I can, for example, build beehives and just nurture them. With these oak trees, the only way I can help them or save them is by cropping off the ivy, by just killing off that ivy. I know for some it might upset them, but I think as viewers, you need to approach this with an open mind. You know, there's going to be things I do on this property that some of you may not like, but I hope that you respect some of the decisions I make. I care about nature, I care about my woodlands, I want to look after it. And I want it to be sustainable throughout the years, throughout my lifetime for my children, and hopefully throughout their lifetime for their children. I want to be a custodian of this land, and part of that is looking after these oak trees on my border. There's a lot of history to them. They have outlasted some of the biggest storms that we've had ever, and I want them to continue to survive through these storms. So welcome to what is probably the first episode here in the new Woodlands. The last one was kind of announcing it, and now I'm here, and well, I've been coming back a couple of days now, and it's snowed, as you can see in the background, but it's starting to melt and it's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've just been wandering, taking it all in, because it's such a beautiful woodland and it looks so different in the snow to obviously when it was literally, the last episode was all autumn, lovely autumn leaves, and now it's a totally different season, and that was only in the space of really a week. But this snow sadly is not going to last. I've seen some incredible wildlife again. Nice resident robin that came and joins me with my little breakfast. But I just wanted to explain a few things and a few of my plans for what I aim to achieve really with this woodland. So we should probably start with the ash tree. Now, there was thousands of comments in the previous episode about what to do with the ash tree. Loads of suggestions. Some of you saying keep it, let it rot, let it sit there, let it decompose for the decomposers, and let it increase the biodiversity of the woodland. Other people said take some timber from that straight section, make some timber out of it, because it's lovely and straight, and ash is a really nice hardwood. And also then make some firewood out of or crafting kind of items out of the top section. I've taken the past kind of week and a half to sit and think about it, of what I want to do with it. Now, we've had some big storms here in the last couple of weeks, and there's been a lot of deadfall and trees that have half blown down or blown down. A couple of them are quite big oak trees. And there's some dead standing oaks as well. Where I'm getting to is that with this ash tree, I feel like, and this is personal, and there's going to be decisions I make during this woodland management process, this project and adventure that I'm doing, there's going to be decisions that I make that some of you won't like, and I do respect that. I just hope that you kind of respect my decisions to do what I'm aiming to achieve with this woodland. Rest assured, I love nature, I want this woodland to thrive, and managing it is one of the best ways of doing that. So hopefully you can see both sides of the stories, but like I say, some decisions I make might not be ones that you would make. I'm just bringing you along on the adventure. For me, this straight section from the first branch coming out of the ash all the way down to the root system is very straight. It's a thick ash tree. It's old. Hopefully I'll get it checked to see how old it really is. But it's a lovely piece of straight wood, and I think it would make some great timber if I mill it up into, and let it season for a year or so. I think it would be really good timber, and it would be a shame to waste such amazing, valuable wood. The price of timber has shot up during COVID and the pandemic. So for me to have this right here in my woodland as mine, it kind of makes sense. Then, as some of you said with the top section, well, that's all falling away, that's slowly dying as it is as well, but it's also ideal firewood. I'm going to cut it up, some for the use here in the woodland, and some for use at my house for my family with my wood burner. Either way, it's the perfect type of wood for firewood. Ash is, as they say, I think, the Queen's wood, which dates back many years ago, that saying, but it's basically one of the best firewoods you can have here, certainly here in the UK, probably in the world, along with oak. So we're going to make use of it. This is the whole point. I'm not wasting it. I've started to stack some of it down here, and let me just show you. It's got snow on it, but it's beautiful. It's got a lovely grain on it, if the camera will focus. It's got a really nice grain. I think some of these sections I deliberately carved up like this, cut up, because I think I'd like to make some wood utensils out of it, spatulas, spoons that I can use here in the woods at potentially a camp down the line, and maybe some to take home for my family to use as well. So that's the plan, try and use as much of this ash as possible. The root system I'm going to leave in the woods to rot away, to decompose, to help the invertebrates, which will help the birds and the general biodiversity, that cycle in the woodland. So the root system will go back to nature. But that was my plan for the ash. On to the next. If you listen, if I stop yabbering. You can just hear the snow melting and just dripping on the forest floor. This really is magical, this place, this woodland. There's a lovely big oak here as well. Everywhere I look, I'm suddenly finding more big oaks. See that one? What a beauty. So the other day, I built this small sawhorse really quickly because I wanted to get some wood cut up while the weather was good. It's solid. I've got the diagonals and the cross braces in there, but it won't take too many big logs. I've got a feeling this is going to last quite a while though, so for most of the firewood chopping of this big ash tree, this could do quite a bit of it until the diameter gets a bit too heavy for these cross sections. But I'm pleased with it. It's nice and small and light, hence why I use thinner wood. And I'm now right near the ash tree, so I've got my kind of workstation here to start cutting the wood and processing it. It's a beast. It's a big old tree. And this is a lovely, long, straight section. Good timber tree. There's the first branch forking off. One of the other reasons why I'm not leaving that ash tree to the decomposers is because I already have one tree down there which is decomposing, and then let me show you this. This is on a part of the woodland I've not really shown you yet, on one of the boundaries. But essentially this is where the ash trees mark this other boundary. So they're here. Here's one of the main tracks and a lot of ash trees behind me. But before I bought this woodland, the foresters had been in to clear the track, and there's plenty of wood decomposing here. Look at that lot. Not useful firewood, too rotten. Looks like, I believe, cherry to me. That looks like a bit of cherry. Yeah, that's all going to rot and decompose. I'm not really going to touch that. We'll leave that for nature. So plenty to go back for the biodiversity there. It's already breaking down quite a lot. Here's one of the beautiful straight ash trees on my boundary. This particular boundary, look at it. Another really good piece. Doesn't fork off till quite high up. Hopefully that one stays and doesn't get blown down. This one here has a bit more damage to it, but it's still standing quite well. Lovely big ash trees. So the one that fell down, sadly, I think is the biggest one and the best one. So I mentioned about the ivy earlier on in the video and what I was planning to do with it and the oak trees that were on the boundary. And I'm also leaving some of the ivy in here, if you just see on this tree. This tree here, it's on the non-windward side of the boundary, and there's plenty of ivy growing up it. And it still looks pretty strong, but we'll keep that one, and if it falls, it falls. It will go back to nature and increase the biodiversity again. More ash here. Some of this potential firewood, or again I leave it and let that go back to nature, break down, create some nice habitats for mammals, flora, fauna, fungi. That's more ash there, so we'll let all that break down. Another stump there, we'll leave that. I feel like the big ash tree is right in the distance there. You might just be able to see it. I feel like I might leave this small part of the woodland, a little bit of holly there, totally untouched. I think I'm going to leave it. I've been thinking about my kind of long-term management plan of this woodland, and I think the way it's kind of laid out is in sections really. You've got the large beach, open beach woodland area, which I did the previous episode in. You've got the hazel coppice area, which has the large oaks coming through that. So slight bit of management in there, probably with some coppice work, and any deadfall that might need to come down will come down. And then I'd like one part of my woodland to be totally untouched, and just to let nature take its toll, and just to see, and create that biodiversity, that diverse habitat really, and just leave it untouched for maybe mammals that may see me in the woods a little bit more. They might get pushed away, pushed further, into the woodland where they don't want to be around me, which is fair enough. But it just creates a bit more of a habitat for them, so they can have some peace and quiet, and I'll leave them to it, and create an environment that's a bit safer for them, a bit more wild for them. In this part we have lots of ferns, but they're flattened at the moment by the snow. So this is the area I'd like to leave totally untouched, and we'll see what happens. There's a few hazel trees that could be coppice, but I think I'm going to leave them for the moment. Bird nest up there. You can see the bird nests in winter, which is great. Another reason why I've waited before I'm cutting anything down, to see where the nests are. And this, after a while, is the old decomposers doing their job. Fungi starting to grow through on that old oak stump. Another one over here. And there. And over there. We'll leave that one, just to make it look more wild. So here's an oak tree which blew over in a storm fairly recently actually, and it's leaning up against that other oak tree, so I'd probably get this one down. In fact, that other one is dead or dying, and I'd probably like to leave that one standing because it's quite solid, even though it's dead at the top. I'm going to leave that and maybe put some owl boxes up there or something, and leave it for the birds of prey, the buzzards. But this is dangerous if I'm walking through the woodlands and this does come down on me. I think this one's going to get chopped down, and maybe we'll leave some of it to decompose and some of it for firewood and shelters. Look at that. There's a nice bit of shingles there. Might leave that on there for the moment. That tree is on the way out. Little stump there. And here's all the thick hazel, which I am going to manage because I feel like this area needs a little bit of management. Another dead wood there, dead tree I'm going to leave. Plenty of dead trees, folks. But look at all this hazel, loads was blown down, so we'll utilise that. And it's such a great wood to be able to coppice. Another big part of my woodland management objectives is to get to know the nature, certainly the fauna that's around me, the wildlife, the mammals. And in order to do that, I can't be here all the time, 24/7, not at the moment anyway. So I've got a few of these trail cameras to help me identify the diversity of the different mammals that come through this woodland. With my own eyes already, I've seen a number of deer, I've seen hare, I've seen buzzards nesting in the trees, obviously robins at the moment, plenty of wood pigeon flying over. I have seen some grey squirrel, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I haven't seen too much at night, and it'd be interesting to see what's at night. So I'm not just going to have this one, I'm going to have a few at different heights. This one is a little bit more sort of chest to head height for deer. I'm going to have some lower down. I've seen some badger sets, I reckon they might be over near the hazel coppice, so I think that would be quite nice to have some night scenes of that, because they're quite shy, so it'd be really good to see what they kind of come out as on the camera. But it just helps me to get to know my woodland a little bit better, find out what's coming through and what I'm sharing my habitat with. Onwards.
As I spend more time in my woodland, I'm getting to know more about the lay of the land. Every corner I turn, I find something new. As my ownership of this woodland is still in its early days, I decided to do a small survey on the various trees I have on my property, marking down not just how many of each species, but also the various health of them and where they are located, being sure to check for any dead standing or ones that might blow down into other more healthy trees. This, along with the trail cameras, will hopefully give me a better understanding of the variety of different flora and fauna that occupy my woodland. So one of the last things I wanted to talk about in terms of managing this woodland is a little bit of pest control. There is some grey squirrel here, which I've seen a fair few of, and the issue with them, if you don't know, is they can cause a lot of damage, especially to beech trees. And what do I have loads of in my woodland? Beech trees. So it's important that I keep on top of them, more so for the sake of managing the woodland and just trying to keep an even balance of, like I say, that biodiversity, to keep it as balanced as possible. If I left it and didn't control any squirrels, then there would be some significant damage to the beech trees, and this would result in a very changed woodland, really, to what it looks like now. So it is part of management, and it's something I need to keep on top of, because they can be quite common and they can be an issue. But so far, not too bad. It's just where it's been neglected and not managed at all for years that they are obviously very comfortable here. But we'll keep an eye out anyway. Using my side-by-side today. I haven't used this in a while, so it's quite nice to have a change from the over and under. I do a lot of clay shooting normally. Clay shooting and rough shooting. But yeah, it's beautiful. Most of the snow has started to melt now. We're getting late afternoon, so I'm going to pack it in for the day and come back next time with some more tasks to do, possibly involving hazel, possibly involving bushcraft, I'd say. But that's my plans, that's so far, and they may change along the lines, but rest assured folks, I will be looking after this woodland, and yeah, as a conservator of the land, it is in my best interest to make sure this woodland thrives. It's a new chapter, it's a new journey, I'm excited. Thank you very much for joining me on this adventure, folks, and stick around for the next episode. I'm going to do some other things as well, not just in this woodland, but carry on some bushcraft stuff in other woodlands that I have permissions in. But yeah, stay tuned. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.